name is?
Jean. No. Oh, I know who you're talking about. No, she went over there.
Okay.
Charlene, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
they were clients at one time, but like, just gonna say hello.
Okay.
All right, everybody, good evening. For those of you who can't see on the camera, we'll convene the Board of Architecture Review meeting for the month of August, July. Now, I have myself.
You want to take what's the roll call?
July 2017, roll call.
Joe Clark,
President.
Dr. Ludlam,
Yeah.
Barbara Kukowski.
Yeah.
Dr. Arroyo,
Yes.
John Fry,
Here.
Michael Body,
Here.
Anybody else is missing?
Nikki Bush is, sorry, Nikki Bush is out tonight. So staff would have, vehicle person council Mark Mahone. We have Brian Hildebrand from Colored Sessions and then Charles Lewis. First item, 200 Main Street, request to adjourn in August.
Okay, so we'll adjourn that to August. Next up. Oh, okay. Yeah.
Oh, you just go around the other side.
Here's the photos of the house. Hello?
Hello.
Okay. All right, so what we're doing is a garage for the owner. And we got zoning variance last month. And so it's just a 38 by, 34 by 22 garage and backyard.
How many cars?
2.
38.
No, 34, sorry. 34,
34 deep or
34 deep.
deep 22?
Right, yes. So, yeah, very easy to see. So there's area in the back for workshop or whatever.
You can get in there okay?
Yeah,
The driveway is okay? Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, one car at a time. No, seriously. Anyway, we're going to side it with siding to match the house, which is sort of a yellow beige vinyl siding with a brown roof. And there's no shutters on this as there are on the house, but all the trim is white to match.
Okay.
Any plumbing?
No plumbing.
No.
No, just electric lighting and garage door.
Okay.
Any questions?
Any questions here? Questions?
I'm sorry, Susan, did you mention variances?
Yes, we received a coverage variance from the zoning board
For building and paving or both?
for building. Yeah.
We're actually reducing their impervious coverage by using pavers.
Oh, really?
Yes,
Where does that happen?
around the garage, and also there's going to be gardens too.
So when you say around the garage, is asphalt, or where it would be asphalt in front of the garage, it's gonna go pavers?
It'll be impermeable. You can say it. Yeah.
On the side.
On the side, right, not in front. On the side.
Yeah, exactly, here. This will be,
Mm-hmm.
say, blacktop.
Are you concerned about getting a car in space 1 as it's noted on that plan?
Well, we figured you have to get one car in at a time. So one car will get in, and then the next car can get in. The first car can pull up, you know, can pull forward.
Right, because you've got to navigate around those steps.
Right, so this car can pull forward today.
You see the pictures of it now. Where's the pictures of it?
So does, let's follow.
You look at those pictures
So those
around.
3 steps need to be there, or can they go off the other side?
They're not there anymore, they only go off the other side.
Ah,
Uh,
the ones that are on the garage side are not there.
Right, correct.
Ah,
yeah. Oops, a little. All right. Cool. Any other questions, more, any questions from the public? If there be none, motion to approve and submitted with the change of removing the steps. So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, great, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, number 13 Market Street. Applicant is seeking to complete the interior, exterior renovations of the standard walls, reframe rooms, and remove or replace windows. Welcome to the house.
Hi, I'm David Graham, architect. My office is 175 Main Street in Austin. And Eddie and Gina Tapia here tonight. They're renovating a house that they bought in the last year that was built in 1990. So they hired me and we, measured everything up when we were doing, interior, partition changes and renovating the bathroom and the kitchen kind of more or less in place. And we were replacing some windows and moving a couple of windows. But it was kind of pretty much as it was. So we filed for a building permit, got the permit, we got started. And the first thing that we encountered is that when we took off all the sheetrock, we kind of demoed everything. We discovered, with the carpenter who was working on the job, that the floor framing from 1900 was in bad shape. So we replaced that, and we had a similar situation with the roof rafters. So we filed an amended plan, and then we continued to move ahead. And then shortly after that, we discovered that a lot of the exterior wall framing was rotted out and in really bad shape. So what we did was we started replacing that in kind and in Situate. And at that point, the building inspector felt that even though the structure was staying, as it was, that we had sort of crossed over, let's call it a 50%, threshold, and there was enough work that we needed to submit the plans to your board to show you what we're doing to make sure that we're on the right track. So these are photographs of the existing house, and you have, floor plans in your file. Market Street is, kind of getting down near the river, and these are photographs of the, the houses around it. A lot of them were built in that era. So,
That's your dumpster.
what's that?
Yeah, your dumpster.
Yes. Yep. So that's why we're here tonight.
All right. The siding intact?
No, we're replacing the siding.
We have the
Shot.
look like.
So we're, putting new vinyl siding on, and they picked out a blue color, like a white, and the trim will be white, and the windows are Anderson, vinyl clad windows, similar to, what was there. So.
One family still?
Yeah. There's a storage basement, it's 2 floors. There's really maybe enough room up in the attic to get a condenser, and nothing more, I mean, an air handler.
So it goes from yellow to gray.
Yep,
Like yellow and blue.
yeah, yeah.
We had some surprises in
Yeah, it was, you know, when they say they don't build them like they used to?
Yeah.
Well, when they built it, it was good, but if you're, you know, around for 117 years, when you open everything up, you find out that you know, you need to do a little bit of tender loving care. Yeah, so that's what we've done. But you know, it's the same shell. You know, everything is. It's basically the same building, but because of the decay that we encountered, we're here.
All right. Any other questions from the board? Any questions from the public? No questions from the public. Approve the plans submitted.
So moved.
Robert, second. Ron, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Good luck with it.
Yep.
All right. So, we can now adjourn as the Board of Architects review. The planning board. Once again, 200 tables.
Just as an FYI, you should not by email, but there's a hard copy on your table of the Chicago Commons, so
Right.
on Union Street, so for August. you guys have-
So, okay, so, and, at some point we'll find an address for program, Baker Brothers. But, given the fact that this requires some amendments to the zoning code, this will be tabled until the village board, deliberates and makes a decision. We'll move on to Hudson Street, which is in the same considerations for a different zone. And so we'll go to 25 Terrace Avenue, excavation and fill permit. So I think, well, but there's more to the story.
Yeah.
So, did you want to expand, or you just want to table it until we figure out, let's table this until we figure out how to deal with the text amendments that are required to the zoning ordinance to deal with cut and fill. 63 South Highland Avenue.
They appeared before you last month. You guys directed them to apply to the zoning board. They were the only application for the August agenda. We only asked to adjourn it to the September agenda, so they're actually not coming back to council.
So let's table this until September. And then now we're to Plateau Associates. You need more time?
Yes, sorry.
That's okay, we'll do the minutes. It's okay.
Thank you.
We can stall over.
Yeah, let me try.
All right, so, you all have, the minutes before you, the, June planning board VAR. Are there any amendments, corrections, et cetera? If not, as we are present, is there a motion to approve the minutes as submitted? On approval? Second, Michael?
I'll second it.
Michael seconds, all in favor?
I abstain.
Okay, so, we have the text amendment for the key family zone to allow educational institutions with dormitory facilities will be tabled at the request of the applicant until they have finished the deliberations and the research we asked them to do. So we'll move on to that. While we wait, before you tonight is another request from the village board for a parcel off Snow Avenue, which is currently zoned CDF, and the applicant is seeking to is described to be a more conservative plan by preserving more land by instead of building out, building up. So, so I don't expect us to make a decision on this tonight, since it's supposed to be here, but we should have the applicant come in, review what it is at the August meeting, so we can understand what, how this benefits the village, absolutely. And also, we should open the scope of their presentations of what other parcels this might affect as we change the second map. So, I think that takes care of that. We should have a live feed from Spring Street. Or wherever the Spring
It's on
Street.
the library.
Oh, the library.
We can all go around and buy.
So, yeah, so why don't we, instead of killing time, is it too hard to shut that off until we start back up again? Otherwise, we don't want people to go. Yeah.
Good job.
Okay. David, you ready to go?
Yes, thank you, sorry.
Okay.
I won't be complaining about being last on the agenda. Good evening. We're here for, of course, Plateau Associates, Hidden Cove. I want to just address a couple of issues before I turn it over to our engineer to run through things with you. One, and I have sent this email out, I sent it around, I believe at least some of you were copied on it. It had to do with requests from Mr. Stout on the status of prior litigation. And one thing that I found, I think, which is very useful and to this board, to us, and illustrative, is in the decision of Judge Mary Smith in the Supreme Court of Westchester in 2011. And I did forward that, but I just want to kind of summarize it. And I also want to point out that I'm not talking now about the engineering of the road, which will be discussed tonight, but I'm really just talking about the issue of whether or not a variance will be required by virtue of the law that the project needs to front on a public road as defined in our zoning laws. And what the court found in reviewing both Water Street and then the North Water Street extension was that both North Water Street extension and North Water Street are public roads in the ownership and control of the defendant, Village of Ossining. And she went on to further, apparently upon submissions and research, she went on to further notate that the plaintiff's property is accessed from North Water Street, then over a recorded 20-foot wide Village Street, that cross and or abuts a small triangular piece of village property known as Lot 6, which I think is the lot that you were talking about at the end there that has been proposed to be improved for village parking. The section of roadway that traverses Lot 6 is known as the North Water Street Extension, which of course is the lower road that runs all the way up, which the village has accepted since the mid-1940s, and it provides public access thereover. I think that makes it pretty clear, along with the other documents we've submitted by way of deed and by way of title company documents, that it in fact is, under the village zoning code, a public roadway. Apparently it was offered and accepted in the 1940s, and it merely under our zoning code needs to show as a public roadway for purposes of, again, not talking about the engineering or the width or the code, but in terms of satisfying the requirement that the project fronts on a public roadway. So I do believe that puts to bed the issue, not with respect to the satisfactory nature of the road, but with access not requiring a variance from the Village of Ossining Zoning Board, which I understand has never been sought before for any of the projects located on the North Water Street extension. But the next issue that I wanted to mention,
Yes, yes,
Sure.
was that decision?
I sent it along in an email. And I'm sorry, Mr. Stout was copied on it. You were not copied on it. It's the, you should have it though, because
The village was party to this decision. It's, and I can send you a copy to you, Mark, but it's the 2011 decision for this lawsuit that was dismissed against the village.
Okay.
And I'll send along to you. I'm sorry that you weren't CC'd on that. I'll leave myself a note.
David, if I may.
Yeah, sure.
Just for the record, Steve Rabel, I'm from Chief office. So there's sort of two issues you touched on there.
Yeah.
First, the primary issue of whether or not it complies with 7736.
Yeah.
I don't think it's ever been in dispute that what's been referred to as the North Water Street extension or the North Water Street itself is a public highway. It's very clear from the deed. The issue is that the property in question does not directly front on or have access to public highway. It has to get there via easements. And if you look at village law, unlike, let's say, town law, which provides
Yes.
for an open access area, which would allow you to have access via a right-of-way or easement, village law does not provide for that. So it's our opinion that you would require a variance since you don't have that direct access. And I believe prior council agreed with us up until the submission of that most recent iteration of the FEIS.
So just, so under the question, so if I follow Mr. Venditti's line of discussion, I would take it that the village actually owns and has title to Water Street extension.
That's what this court document says, and in fact, the entire North Water Street extension does come up to this property, and they do front on it.
I believe you noted in some of your letters that it ends at the border of the Santucci property. Is that
No, it connects all the way through, even though there is the entire, what you call the easement is called the North Water Street extension. And it was actually argued by council for the village previously that the public roadway ended at the end of North Water Street and didn't include the North Water Street extension.
So I just want to make sure I understand.
Yeah.
You submitted a very lengthy memo a little while back, and you color-coded it,
Yep.
and you talked about the North Water Street extension with regard to these colored-in deeds.
Yes.
And they end here at the Santucci property. Is that correct? Or no?
Well,
Is the
that's what was on color coded, but then we reviewed this decision, which actually held that their property, was on a public roadway, and they had access to and from. Otherwise, I don't even know how we'd have Filex.
So let's, and, so I think we still have,
And there's, yes,
so I think since the village of Austin at this moment in time does not recognize that they own 30 feet of whatever property is there, and I don't know that since we follow it all the way through, whether actually the in-code parcel was sort of bisected by the North Water Street extension is recognized as public property, or whether the Santucci's or whoever owns it now recognizes that entire surface of the road is actually village property.
well, the court apparently recognized it as having been dedicated and accepted in the 1940s, and the title company held that it was they would insure it as a public roadway. But that segues into the next, no, I'm not sure if you actually, I think you do. I think you do maintain it. But that segues into the next issue that I have, and I had emailed, and again, it was, my apologies, Lynn, I know it was in the afternoon, and then I was in federal court all day, so I didn't get a chance to follow up. I didn't get out of federal court till about 5 o'clock, but I had asked if you could bring down the Santucci site plan approvals, both from 04 all the way up through 2011, this entire 30-foot wide area that we're talking about over their property appears, at least by this, and that's why I would certainly like to see the stamped site plans. They seem to have been accepted by the Village of Austin, and again, I say seem, I don't want to speak out of turn and then have egg on my face. That's why I'd like to see the actual site plan approvals. But this shows 30-foot wide easement across their property as part of the site plan approved by the Village of Austin Planning Board, January 25th, 2005, PB number 1604. And then it's stamped by the Village of Ossining, master file received January 28, 2011, Department of Planning. It at least appears from this that this planning board has already accepted the meets and bounds and location of this 30-foot wide access which connects to the end, to Water Street, as part of a prior site plan approval. So I would love to actually see that site plan as well.
Have you seen it?
Sure.
I was about to ask another question,
Yeah.
but you may have answered.
I'm not sure that I answered that. I think I may have answered it.
Well, because I can't read this really. So, I can't, you guys can speak to the legal notices. I can't really speak to this, but here's what I would share. Clearly from, solely from a design professional's lens, where public streets, well, let's put it this way. I've never seen a public street traverse property line after property line after property. And maybe that's the way the survey was constructed. And the survey really wasn't constructed, for example, to reflect the information that, and it's challenging to understand it here. But you at least spoke to the notion that there had been deeded, as I understood you to say it, meets and bounds created for the public roadbed. Is that what you're saying this document represents?
That's what I was saying that came out of the court decision. What I'm saying that document appears to represent is the fact that that entire area has already been accepted by this planning board in the Santucci site plan approvals.
I don't know how we would accept the alteration of meets and bounds.
Well,
That's not, we're in the business.
I don't know, that's why I asked that they be brought down here, because that is, if you read it at the bottom, it appears to come from the Santucci approved site plan.
So, but that's inconsistent. This then would be inconsistent with what we see here.
I don't know that it would be. In which, John, which way do you mean? Because I can't tell what you're looking at.
The fact that these property lines traverse the roadway in...
I think that this whole area has been inarticulately drawn over the years.
And I suggested maybe that, but that, but that lends to the complexity of this, maybe not the clarity.
Yeah, there's no doubt that. So I think, anyone who, like I have, who's lived here, forever, knows that this area is kind of an area that has often been forgotten and not very well traveled by the average Ossining resident. And I think that it's not been very well mapped out. We have to look for things into the 40s. We have to piece together various site plans. We even have this approval, as I submitted to council. This lot itself was approved by this planning board for an office building with 129 parking spaces with no question of the access. And I have a stamped approved site plan by the Village of Ossining Planning Board. I don't know how these things, the genesis of these things over time, but I can say that we appear to be the only applicant that have been brought to this level of task in showing the right of access. Again, I'm not speaking to the dimensions of the roadway and the engineering of the roadway. I'm talking about to the right of access abutting their property. Again, I had submitted in my memo, this very lot was approved. What was the name of the owners, gentlemen?
Mark's Brakes.
What?
Mark's Brakes.
Mark's Brakes. And I have a copy of my folder back there. It was going to be an office building with 120-something parking spaces, and the access was accepted and approved. It appears, at least from then, I want to say appears, not to...
What year was that?
Mark?
What year was that?
I have it again. In 1990-something. What? This Scogliosi is actually the name on the plan. I do have it.
So,
Would you like me to pull it out just so we can...
I think I'm very...
I submitted it to the attorney.
I would tend to agree.
We actually did take a look at the approval cited in Mr. Winby's memo. As far as we can tell, none of those applications were for new buildings. There were amended site plan for renovations, some were looking to remove parking, but they were all existing buildings or maybe change of use,
Yeah.
as far as we can tell. 7736 only applies to the erection of new buildings.
I'm sorry, it does not apply to when a building permit is pulled, and that would have required many building permits because it was to change the old Granville Pill Factory into an office building. And the parking was intensive with over 120 spaces. I mean, can you remember sitting here as this board, any planning board application on North Water Street where they've had to go to the zoning board for a variance?
Yeah, I think so.
I couldn't find one.
I think everybody down there has got a variance, because one guy got taken out of his business, but because he didn't comply with his own. But let's go boil this back. So at the end of the day, if the judge decides that this is a street, is it a street or not a street? The village apparently was informed of the outcome of the litigation. So here's my question, so we can move this along. And that's actually almost nothing to do with what's shown. But if it's a public street, and nobody does anything to that street, with respect to the flood, because that's one of the big issues here, is how do these side yards get, how do if they raise it to comply with the current ordinance, or the current, floodplain, one, do they have to anyway, regardless of what the judge said? Right? Does somebody have to raise the water bed? And if it does, fine. If the answer is no, then the only argument is it a street or not a street, which is sort of where we started with, right? But I think that's sort of a switch for me. It says, okay, so if we presume that the judge said this is what the law is today, it's the finding of fact, right? And nobody from the village disputes that finding of fact, then are we obliged by the new floodplain regulations to require anybody that does major redevelopment to meet that standard? Or is it only applied when we get to their personal owned property? Because presumably we now own a strip of land that runs up to 4 acre, or at least to the end of whatever we're calling Black Hose property. So I don't know the answer to that.
I agree that those are important questions, and I think there's another question that's on there, is what hasn't been touched upon, is if it is, as held by the court and not appealed or challenged, a public roadway, is the village of Ossining obliged to raise it to maintain the health and safety of those at the end of it? And I think that the best way in proceeding is to allow the applicant to do so, and I think that would provide another great value to the village and enhance the health and safety of those, because we know there are people at the other end.
And I don't think this board would argue that. The question then becomes, can it practically be done without encroaching on the private property of those adjacent parcels? I
think it can, and I think that's what
that's what
Mr. Berthet is going to speak to next.
It says, how do I get, because I don't know what the elevation changes, but maybe 4 or 5 feet.
I think close to 4 in the maximum, sometimes 0. And I think that, and I would like to leave that to the engineer to show you how wonderfully he's designed the street.
8% slope, that's a pretty long right. So, I mean, it's not that it's impossible, but it means that somebody's got to go negotiate with the adjacent landowners and says, we're going to make this better for you.
Well, as we said, number one, we have a court-ordered stipulation, which I now understand was from prior counsel, was indexed in land records. The stipulation that gave them the rights that apparently the Santucci's followed in presentation of that drawing to the planning board. Those are the same, that's essentially the same drawing as in the stipulation that was to be followed.
They didn't change grades.
No, but
You gotta change grade.
But we're willing to
So I
protect everybody on that
I mean,
street.
that's the only problem I see, is how do you do it in 30 feet?
Mr. Bertay is gonna tell you that.
Wait, so before we,
Yeah.
so your contention, this document says what?
My contention is, as I, in a very lawyerly fashion, covered myself saying, I haven't seen the entire document, I'd like to see it. It appears to be, and I understand it to be, part of a site plan approval that was issued for the Santucci's as referenced on that document and accepted by the Village of Ossining and part of their master file in 2011. So I believe they recognized that those were court-ordered meets and bounds, general meets and bounds of an easement that was now indexed in land records and is a part of the official records for the county of Westchester.
Well, it's an easement, not a road bed.
I believe that's an easement that, yes, that allows for the building of a roadbed, sidewalks, curbs, etc., up to a maximum width of 30 feet. And thank you, and now Mr. Bertay will show you how he's wonderfully engineered this roadway that will protect the health and safety of the residents.
First off, my apologies for being late. I thought I had enough time, but learned my lesson to never assume the agenda, so I apologize for being late. So we designed the road to stay within elevation, above elevation 8, which gives the fire department enough elevation to pass fire truck if there is a 100-year flood and there's evacuation that needed to be done. Keeping the road in the same location of where it is today, just by raising it and making some modifications to the horizontal alignment to make site distance, to improve site distance. The worst case scenario for raising the elevation to 8 plus or minus 8 is in this corner here of the building. The elevation here is at 5.2. Elevation 6 here along the railroad tracks, and we're at a low point here at about elevation 8. So we're about just under 3 feet is about 3 feet is our worst case scenario for filling, raising this road, and then making a transition here. This building has access doors here, so utilizing a curb break at some point that we could coordinate with the owners of this property, currently the Santucci's, we could make a transition along this road with a retaining wall along the sidewalk, so as to still maintain access to that existing building. We have enough elevation change here in distance where we could also slope down to maintain access in this parking lot with some regrading, again, which would require coordination with the property owner for that building. The other areas, our points of access here are at this location and all along here right now, so it would require, and there is room available to make that transition from the raised roadway to still maintain access to those buildings. Last Friday, I met with the professional representing the Santucci's to discuss a realignment of the road to relocate that building. I mean, relocate the road and subsequently relocate the building as well. So, in hopes of eliminating any issues of there being access or use of someone's property for the improvement of this road. So, yeah, I'll do it on the big screen here because it's just going to be easier.
That's an alternative that's not cogent to the application. I think given all of the other confusion at this point, best not to reference that alternative for this presentation. Let's just stick with the actual road surface where it is, and that's part of our application. That subsequent alternative really would be up to the Santucci's or their successor in interest to be able to present.
I don't think that's accurate, because I don't think that we can move forward unless we can demonstrate that you created access, right? Otherwise, you've landlocked. So,
Right, no, I think Paul's able to show the existing road and the engineering of the existing road that he's cleared with the village's consultant does provide the access to the other structure. There is an alternative that...
as long as you can demonstrate to the village that you've not blocked access to these parcels.
Right. And I think that's, we have...
And we get a plan that documents that, I think we can go forward.
And that's done.
Okay.
I think what Paul was presenting is a subsequent iteration that would actually help the Santucci property improve itself.
That's what, so if you've got a way to get them access.
Paul has
raise the
designed that.
elevation.
Yeah, Paul has designed that. I think you'll be pleased and appreciate the engineering.
To these guys, right? Okay. So, take us whatever path you're going to take us to.
So staying along this path here, like I said, there's enough of an elevation and horizontal alignment where I can put a curb cut and gain access to this building and not landlocking or reducing the use of that building for both sides of the proposed improved road going through that parcel.
Moving the road to the back side of that building, one lane or two?
Not going in for staying in front of the building.
Right, we would improve it to a 24-foot wide road and a 5-foot sidewalk.
Are we talking about the water side or the other side?
The application before you tonight is the road going in an approximate location through the Santucci property in its existing location, just at a higher elevation.
On the water side?
On the west side.
On the west, no, on the east side so it's still splitting the property. So the Santucci parcel is portioned here as well as through here. So the road, as it is today, bisects that property. The proposal before you tonight is to continue that.
Where's the new building on that side?
The exist, oh, way down.
Where the swales are there, you're around the corner.
Right, so
That's where we are right now.
actually, no, if you slide back. Can you go to sheet, maybe go to sheet 1? That has the overall.
We're 600-700 feet from them.
Right, so here's the building that we were just talking about in gaining access to the garage doors and the existing buildings here with a parking lot. We're traveling here, we're cutting out this bend right now. It kind of hooks a little bit towards the west, towards the tracks, but we're smoothing this radius out. There's an existing building here, Castle Plumbing, which is to remain. We make this corner here, and presently the road cuts through here. Our proposal is to swing closer to the water and make an entrance into the new development with this modification to the road. So anything here, this is all in the same approximate location of where the roadbed is now, just at a higher elevation.
Who owns Castle? It's not a Santucci, right?
No, it's not.
Yeah. They're not affected?
They're not affected.
So the only parcel that's affected by this floodplain shift is
Santucci parcel, yeah. This is at around elevation 9, so we're okay there. There's no transitions to make. It was really just from here to here. Even on this side, we're starting, I think we're at elevation 7 or 8, but this is about where the transition stops in terms of the elevation change.
Very nice. How long is this road bringing from here to the property?
I think we're about 1,000 feet. Yeah, you want to go to sheet 5? So we're at 800 feet up to this point, and then it's about another 700 feet to the entrance, to the
How
property,
much further will it
approximately.
You said how wide is this? What is it?
There'll be a 30-foot right-of-way, it'll be a 24-foot wide road, and a 5-foot sidewalk.
That is in between us, so between us.
Yes.
Is it a one-way kind of thing, or does it allow simultaneous access?
Two-way, one lane in each direction. Yeah, a typical two-lane road with a double yellow in the middle. Right now, it's less than that, and there is no true definition of the road through here.
So right now, our road does not technically exist, it just don't get that.
No, there is a road, it's just not defined as an improved road that you might find in another village road. I'm sorry? Yeah, it's flat top, yeah.
It's kind of like a very industrial setting, just.
Yeah, passing through the properties without the definition that we're showing now for the improvement. No, it's, just tractor trailers that's going in and out every day and maneuver that existing road. So the proposal is to,
So the discussion tonight is, what I don't think we need to see is you to flesh out that, how you're gonna solve the entrance to those two parcels. And, there's, some of those have, at least I saw where we actually, at some point, somebody dictated parking spaces, right, in circulation. I don't know necessarily what the body shop is. This was body shop. There was another building close to it, right?
yeah, right now is,
That's the body shop, that's not the brick building, that's not Castle. That building was-
Castle is further that way.
So that was the
So this
body
is
shop.
all Santucci.
Right, so there's parking before the body shop. There's gotta be some plans for that someplace around it, because they have variance to exist, and they got to clean out. They were non-conforming. So however you're gonna, presumably if you're gonna change the way they get in and out, you're gonna have to change how the parking.
Yeah, we're not changing how they get in and out, because they get in and out from here and then pass through that. You're talking about this side?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that would change.
So the elevation to get into that parcel on the right-hand side is gonna change.
Yeah, we're going to transition from here to the center point of the parking lot to make that transition.
Is that, just so we're all clear, that's a negotiation that occurs between Plateau Associates and, in this case, Santucci?
Yeah, I believe that Mr. Murphy's already started
Okay.
speaking with JV.
Okay, so, all right.
He's their, JV is their architect.
Okay, yeah, so that's one stage. So he would get both sides of the shop, right?
Yeah, we would, yes, the coordination for here and here would be, it's the same owner, same
So
property.
if we pass the brick building, we still have some other owners, right? If we don't get to Plateau for a while.
Yeah, we don't get to Plateau until,
There's only one, Castle Plumbing.
Okay, so but presumably there's not much of a negotiation there because it's flat, right?
it's, right, we're not modifying we're just driving by, we're not modifying, we are widening the road, but we're widening it on the other side.
Anything to the north that has to be contended with, or we're just abutting with what exists?
No, we're realigning the road from here, which now goes in,
Nobody cares about that, right?
right, because this is
Right there,
Plateau
that's the
property.
line. I think there's a brook or stream or something,
There's a
right?
stream that's right over here.
So when you cross the stream, you cross to somebody else's lot, right?
No,
Yeah.
that's still Plateau property.
Yeah, it's a little bit further in. Here's, the property line is here. And then there's another common easement that stretches.
But there's no, you're back to grade or whatever you have.
We're back at grade here.
All right, I got it.
And the existing surface.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, we're back to grade. We're at elevation 9.5 here at the corner of Castle. It drops back down to 8, 6.5, so we are preparing this road to still maintain the elevation for flood access. But as we get back to here, We transitioned down to elevation 8, which is at the Bath property line.
Now, is there any issue with getting so closely abutted to the Metro North property?
No, because, well, this, the elevation along the
I mean, I'm
tracks,
talking about setbacks, do they have any stipulation?
not that we've read in the deed.
We got it, Steve, so we still,
I think, obviously my office is gonna have to take a look at the court case and see if it stands for what he says it does. I don't believe the judge would have the authority to go back and change the meets and bounds.
I don't know how he takes property, I don't know how he takes property, but he might have recognized the fact that the easement exists.
Yeah, the judge didn't change, the meets and bounds, he just recognized the right of access and that it was technically under the law of public road. You should have the, I said to Mr. Stout, plus your office was actually represented the village of Austin in that court case.
So the easement for access to the same as access.
Well, who owns the easement?
Well, but if you have it, you do this all the time, and, if people move across over somebody else's property, into their property, that gives you great access, right?
Yes.
So the question is if we don't dispute that the easements exist for the right of access, then I think you would tell me that that's true, huh? If that's true, then the question comes, it becomes clear that it's not owned by the village of Austin. That's number one. We don't own it. We at best recognize an easement for access. And two, the floodplain issues have to be dealt with. And so the question is the design, which is more elaborate than we saw tonight, to actually demonstrate that we actually do have that. I think those are the three things we need to go over. On this. Okay, right? Okay. Well, we solved a lot tonight. No, this is fundamental. I mean, if we can't pass through this, it's immaterial.
It's threshold.
So we got to do this. That's why I wanted to get this going. So can we, try to do this in the next couple of weeks? Because I know we're getting into August, I don't know what happens with vacations, but my plan was to have a work session in June. We didn't make it. So maybe we can do something, I don't know how I do in August.
I'm not going away till the 30th.
So,
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
We can work with the engineer's office to make sure that they're
all right.
they're reviewing
Let's
the
just try to get the
profile.
language down. We know where we're going. And when you know, when we're all good to go, please let Lynn know so we can get the word together and move again.
Great.
So I know, for my client's sake, we're still, this is a threshold item.
We can't demonstrate that we don't have utility use of the property it's done. Right. So we gotta get that done.
There's more to, let's say that threshold is met. Does the board have any other comments on the rest of the
See,
building?
my view of that, I'm going to talk to the board, but my view of that is you own all that other property. So I don't need to worry about any other people but you and the village. Right? But for now, we got to worry about the public.
I guess.
Let's try to get everything that's outside of, this parcel that we're actually developing, sort of squared away. And we can actually focus on this. Because I think there are some iterations you got to do with fire department.
Right, there's
Right, but that's all stuff that can happen right here.
We received some comments today, in fact, a memo today, after the meeting with the fire department and the building department.
I was just like, everybody think about who are the private parties that we have to get agreement from. It's going to be a lot easier. At least a plan that demonstrates it. You hate to have a plan that gets approved by some board that says contingent upon all these things. Every going down the go path to remain on it. So I'd like to jump the hurdles one at a time.
Okay. The other hurdle was the fire access at the building.
Right.
Any comment on the changes that we made to eliminate the fire access around the building and to how we are showing compliance with the fire chief's?
So let's separate two things. One is comply with New York State regulations with respect to the fire.
Which we believe it does.
And the Marine Corps will tell us that.
Right.
Number two, it's very nice to cover in the fire department, but I want to make sure I accommodate the law. Okay. So, if they ask for something over and above the law, and you guys comply with that, that's fine, but if they agree to something below the law, we're not going to do so.
Sure. Is there any comments on those, either of those items?
We had a few fire access, I don't know if we got our memo.
I didn't.
More or
I'm sure I
less.
got it, I just didn't.
Yeah, it appears that you having provided the access along the one side of the building. We just noted if you don't have vehicle access around the entire building, maybe you can provide manned access. We just, a little more clarification about the length of the hoses and the hydrants is kind of planned together that really
Itemizes that and shows that.
Yeah,
compliance.
but other than that, it seems to merge both the fire department's requests and meet the intent of the code.
Okay.
I have a question.
Yes.
How are you going to manage removing garbage?
Garbage disposal for the building? It'll be a private entity, it'll be a private, you know what, I'm gonna speak, but if the owners have a different alternative. Yeah, I mean,
we know we're going to have garbage.
Yes. No, right now, the preliminary plan is for there to be garbage chutes in a building collected at a centralized location and then.
That's what I want to know. The location.
Right. And where it would be?
Yes, and how it would be picked up.
We've got limited places where we can store it. So one of the options is to dedicate some space in the.
You're not ready for that right now, are you?
We're not ready for that right now.
Okay.
But we've discussed what the options are. And it would be to collect it in a central location inside the building, in the basement, and either store it dumpsters outside here or in this corner here, mask it and landscape it so that it's not evident to, or it's not visible to the public that's using that street, but those are.
And the sanitation trucks, who's everybody would be able to get to that area and remove it.
Right, we would make sure that the access to these bins, whether they're rear loaded or front loaded, that there's proper circulation here to allow that turning movement for the trucks to get in.
I think Brian's memo has some issues on the refuse collection and garbage pickup and the room that's needed for the trucks.
That'll be cool.
They should address it.
This is what, 180?
137.
137. So your trash removal will be someplace between Snowden House and Harbor Square.
Absolutely.
So there's two, well, the only reason I bring it up is because we actually know what's going on here, right? Because it's an empty day for garbage.
Yeah.
So it's, it's going to be, my guess is,
How many containers?
at best, every other day, at worst, every other day, I don't know, what it's some truck going to come in and out.
Correct. I mean, the commercial pickup, that's a
It depends
very
on
standard, industry
contract.
standard approach,
You gotta separate today.
recycling requirements, et cetera.
Okay.
Although the village garbage trucks do go down there and service the commercial accounts down there.
Yeah, well, I think we're in the business of taking money to do that.
So we may work out something with the village.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're competitive. I mean, I've heard that before. I don't know why we should do that, but we do. So, and now we're on tape, so we'll find out. If anybody's listening. Okay, anything else tonight? I think we're good to go. You guys know what you're gonna do.
Thank you for your attention tonight.
Good, thank you.
Good night, gentlemen.
March 1st. Anybody want to